whether, I guess they can identify your car, but I mean, how are you supposed to remember what you were doing a month before? If a trooper stops me on the 198 on the way home, and I think he did something unfairly, I'll make notes, it'll be keen in my mind, etc. So memory factor is something we want people to think about here, and that's very important with respect to other points that we'll get into later. You literally don't have notice. Now, let's say I drive to work every day the same way, and I'm not aware that something's a school zone or that I'm being, I'm breaking the law somewhere. I could probably break the law 30 times before I got my ticket, my first one, and at that point in time, I'd have a ton of citations. Strange bird to be going after a car for a moving violation.
True, but doesn't the law? I have seen. So I'm kind of new to this. So I have seen some pictures of the notices that you are put along the road, I should say, and I know the statute requires that there is supposed to be some kind of very specific. This is a camera type speed zone that's going to catch you. If you're going. What do they say? You got to be a minimum of 10 miles over, I believe, before they'll send you a ticket.
I think that's what they're doing,
right.
At least.
I think that's right in the statute, but some of the photos that I've seen from the videos you've done, it doesn't seem like there's people are getting the proper notice to even let them know that they're coming into a speed zone, and they're finding out afterwards by getting a citation. As you said, they could get multiple citations if they drive the same way all the time and haven't been notified that there's a camera here that's sending them a ticket every time they go by.
By way of an example, if you're leaving the city on Main Street by the St. Joseph's School, that's the most notorious speed trap. That one was generating $60,000 a day in potential revenues for the city. I think there were 1,200 violations a day. If you're leaving the city and you turn onto Main Street from Winspear, which is a main intersection there, you have no notice that you're in a school zone until you've tripped the camera, because there's no notice at all.
With that in mind, Pete, I think what we can do is to kind of paste this. This is a news update from our WNY REACH program. And we'll start with a video that you and I made at that exact location. Now, this is a little bit rough, but what the idea is to look at the camera placements and where they are. And I think from there, after this video is over, we can come back and talk about the other violations or the other difficulties that have arisen with the system. But this will illustrate, first of all, this one particular example and start giving people an idea of what we're talking about. If you're watching right now, or you know anyone in Buffalo, share this with them immediately. Anyone can end up with these tickets. We'll tell you about that in a moment. But
before you start the video, Peter, congratulations on your new appointment as news director for WNY REACH.
Thank you so much. This is our first ever impromptu podcast. I'm so thrilled to be part of it. So glad that you're here too, so that you get to see what we do in here. So we're going to watch the video, and we'll be back. You can in about 5 minutes. Now, I just realized we didn't put any sound to this. I could put some Three Stooges music. And as you notice, there's the placement of the first sign that warns you there's a crossing. And it's well ahead of the school, which is even out of frame on that map. You're driving. This is on Main Street.
You can start to see the church on the school over on the left.
Mm-hmm. There's the first school speed limit sign when flashing.
So that's the start of the speeds district.
And where we're coming to a stop, you'll probably have some sound cut in here.
Okay. All right. So I'm at the school when that hits. So where did the zone start? Almost at the door of the church. The flashing light here on my right, where it tells me there's a camera up ahead, I'm already past the school. Now, who in the hell laid this out here? I think they got the wrong building.
So you can see from the map where we're stopped is the top box. The school is identified. And after the school, you remember you're going from right to left downwards.
This big red brick building here, I'm not sure it's any longer used. I believe it was the nunnery or something at one point in time.
That's the big brick building Pete was looking at ahead of him on the left. That's the former Candlesian Center. It's not a school.
I think they marked the wrong.
So now, nearly a block after the school, the camera with the warning sign attached to it, and the trees partially obscure the sign. The camera zone is after you pass the school. There it is again. There's the camera itself. And back there is the school. You can see the buffalo-bound camera going from upper to lower.
I don't know what that does. These cameras may work together. This one may judge your speed, and that one may take a picture.
Camera's in the upper left.
We'll have to go to my house to get.
So you can see the camera coverage area and the intersection in front of the school where they have crossing guards morning and afternoon.
Now,
Can I repeat that? There's a crossing guard there in the morning.
crossing guard there in the morning, and the overwhelming majority of children show up at that school. It's actually St. Joe's is over there. Show up there, but they let off on a bus, which is going out of town. So they get out of the side of the bus, and they're not in traffic at all. I believe there's a small number of children that actually cross the street who live around here. But these cameras seem to be set up to judge speeding in front of an empty building. See the principal, they'll tell us that's the school. So what's the red building?
Traffic cam. And the school it's protecting. So we went in and checked out the building.
There's a homeless guy going up on the stairs there, and you'll see how.
I can see.
This is an abandoned building. It's a good place to sit and sleep if you're home.
Yeah, who did cite and install these cameras? I mean, it's ridiculous in some cases because you've got a camera that is after the school itself. I mean, the school is obvious. But did someone who's outside of our area do that? I'm not sure. But,
Well, you know, if I'm obeying the speed limit at the school, I could accelerate after that. But if I'm coming through at high speed, I mean, I'm already past the school. I already ran the kids down, if that's what you were worried about. This doesn't make any sense at all. I really think whoever installed that camera got the wrong building. Okay, I think they intended them to be in front of the school, and they got it wrong because the big red building kind of looks like a school building,
right.
and the other building looks like a parsonage nunnery or something. The real school building is not what they're protecting.
Well, from the pillows on the front, you and I were talking about the fact that someone homeless may be living on the front of that building. So I'm sure they get up every morning and say, I'm the safest, most protected person in the city.
No one can run them down.
Paul, what do you think of that, what you just saw? Oh, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I agree that it's hard to have a ticket for a school zone violation in a place that isn't a school. And I also, the problem with these laws. I mean, because it has no relation to the driver. All it has, it's ticketing your property, and making you make a very simple decision about, well, I want to pay $50, or I got to hire a lawyer and go through a lot of rigmarole. It's just there's no way to properly fight this thing, because the time and effort you'd have to get an expert to figure out if the camera was working correctly, and I'm sure there's all kinds of ways in the statute around that I haven't seen. Well, but one of the things I think that blows my mind, that shows that this is such an obvious, just a way to bring in revenue for the city, is these cameras are supposed to be placed, from what I saw in the statute, in areas where they've had a problem, where I think where they've done monitoring, where they've determined that there's a problem with the speed data, there's crashes, there's injuries, there's all kinds of things going on in these areas, and how could they have done their homework if they're putting the camera in front of a place that isn't even a school?
That's a good question.
It doesn't even make sense.
Something else with respect to that: the kids that do cross there are going to cross during a time, and the city did modify the ordinance back. Originally, it was just a whole, essentially the whole day. One of these cameras on Bailey Avenue used to be 11 hours, from 7 in the morning till 6 p.m. The Common Council recently changed the law, so you're only ticketed during the transit time hours when kids come and go. Well, there's a crossing guard at that intersection right out in front of the school during those times. I talked to the crossing guard one day, and she said she thought the cameras were dumb. She didn't think it was helping anybody out or doing anything. So, this is the answer. If it's child safety, this is the answer to the question that no one asked. And I think Paul's correct. We got a $100 million hole in the city budget, and this is a way we're going to stuff it. And
nice shovel.
That's just not the way to do it. If you have to raise taxes, you raise taxes. If you have to cut services, you cut services. I mean, there's two ways to fix a hole: reduce expenses or increase revenues. And this, this is just going to make people angry. And when they get out of these school zones or whatever, they're going to drive 80 miles an hour. Compliance with the laws in this country only happens because people want to comply. If everyone ran every red light, we don't have enough enforcement to stop people from doing it. If people today, right now, this minute, decided that they weren't going to obey red lights anymore, it'd be chaos. And
it's called anarchy.
Yeah, you got it. But it works because we comply. Our tax system works because people pay their taxes. If everybody decided tomorrow not to pay their taxes, it would be over.
Right. Pete and Paul, one of you, could you qualify, what is the statute you're reading from? We're kind of leading people blind here. We showed them the first video, but we're referencing a document that came from where, and what is that document?
It's V&T 1180-D, and it authorizes the city of Buffalo to have a demonstration project, if it wants to do these speed cams in school zones that, essentially ticket cars.
Right. Who put that in place? Now, where does that authority come from?
State legislature. This legislation was introduced by Senator Tim Kennedy. And I don't want you to get on the phone to Tim Kennedy and holler at him. The statute in and of itself is not that bad. I was talking to my councilman, Joel Farrelletto, this morning, and we both agree. The legislature had to assume that the government would fairly and sensibly implement and enforce the law. We all have a right to expect that of government, and I don't think that this implementation has been fair.
Right. And so the state implemented or authorized it. Buffalo implemented the traffic cams, and you're reading essentially what are the rules for those. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And
so,
there are requirements that the city has to meet.
Right.
And we'll get into that. These are the sorts of things. One of the things that I want to say, if you get one of these citations, ask for a hearing, period, end of story. And we'll try to come up with some ideas and some checklists and maybe, follow up later with some written material, the sorts of things you should be looking at in your citation. And,
right.
The intro stuff, pointing out some of the problems will help you with that and get that. But notice on the citation is important. The guy I was talking about who got 30 tickets before he knew he got one, me getting a speeding ticket and knowing everything about it and knowing the name of the officer and saying, boy, that wasn't fair or whatever, that's very different from some anonymous machine got me a month ago. And I don't even remember who was driving the car that day.
Well, that's a good point. You made that in our pre-show meeting that, who remembers what they did a month ago? And is a month the time limit that people have to put that in place? Like, do they have a month to notify you?
You want to try that, Paul? It's what is it, Section G there?
Well, I mean, I know they have to send the ticket out within a certain amount of time, which is 14 business days if you live in the state of New York.
Now, that's a little weird, by the way, in and of itself. Who does business days? You know what? I got to have a calendar to figure out business days. If it said 14 days or 21 days, I could do the math, and it'd be pretty straightforward. November had a couple of holidays in it. It was the day after Friday, a business day, or after Thanksgiving, a business day, So that in and of itself is a little weird, but this is one of the points that we're going to want to make, or I guess I can make now. The city is currently not getting these things out timely. Mm-hmm. They're required to get them out timely. Paul, you're a defense attorney going to a hearing. Somebody was crazy enough on their $50 ticket to say, I'm going to give you $5,000, come on down to my, represent me in a hearing. I got this thing 19 business days. It's postmarked 19 business days after the infraction. What's your position?
Well, my position on that case would be that it violates the statute, and it's in a very, the hearing officer, depending on their... Well, the hearing officer should dismiss it. I mean, obviously, if it violates the statute, that's one thing. But, to rely on them sending out now, remember that it says they only have to send it. You don't have to get it within 14 days. They have to send it within 14 days. So,
well, that gets even better.
Because, they're sending it from, like, Oklahoma, so you don't know how long it takes to get to you.
Oklahoma.
This is a Massachusetts company that's sending you your citation from Oklahoma.
For a traffic infraction in Buffalo.
Yeah, one of my cars, you see, I'm not going to admit that I ever drive a car anymore. I don't need to. But one of my cars got ticketed, and it took 6 days for the mail to get from Oklahoma. Okay, right. It literally took 6 days for that citation to land at my house. I don't remember what color socks I was wearing Thursday before last. Okay, how am I supposed to remember who was driving the car? And just so you know, my wife and I got 4 cars. We drive different cars every day. Sometimes we lend them to people. I don't know who was driving the car at 12:15 on October 28th. I just have no idea.
I just have a quick question. Do you even have to tell the government who was driving your car that day? Because they're the one prosecuting you.
Well, I don't think I have to. I think they have to tell me. They also have to tell me which way I came, when I drove my car. Let them prove whether I turned at Winspear or not, or whether I came straight down Main Street.
Peter, but that's the problem with this kind of like mass capture of people's information with this call of speeding. I really think they probably thought this was a great idea after they started doing it on the 33, when they put the 33 down to 30 miles an hour.
Scajaquada.
Scajaquada.
Yeah, Scajaquada. Oh yeah, the 198. I should have. I meant
plus tax. It's New York.
Yeah, the 33 is faster.
Right.
They made it faster, and the Scajaquada slower.
But the problem is you're looking at a statute that's just giving a ticket to your property. Well, it's still your property, and whether or not you can say, well, I wasn't driving that day, well, then
Can you even remember?
Well,
Right,
why do I have to say? It's not my job to say.
But what if it was you? Then you go to the hearing, and they're going to say, okay, here is an electronic certification from this company in Massachusetts via Oklahoma that's caught your car at 11 o'clock in the morning when all the kids were in school, going 26 miles an hour in a 30 zone, but we got this camera there that you're not even aware of. And even if so that's why I'm maybe taking a little exception with your notice that you should all get a hearing, because I guarantee you, the good chance is you're going to lose the hearing because they don't have to prove you were driving. All they got to prove is it was your car, unless you can say it was reported stolen or that.
But wait a minute! Don't I have to tie in elemental fairness here? I mean, what if whoever was driving that car got a ticket in front of St. Joe's and turned in off a Winspear and never saw a speed zone sign or a school zone sign until they received the ticket? Okay, I mean, this is a strange game here because I think I still get human defenses, and there are lots of side streets you can turn onto to these school districts where you're not going to see the signs before you get a ticket. I mean, isn't that something that a reasonable hearing officer should be willing to take into account?
I would suggest that they should take it into account, but I'm also suggesting that they probably won't. And given the fact that they're giving you probably a grand total of 15 minutes for a hearing,
correct,
at best, and the Parking Violations Bureau was notorious for just saying, "Oh, well, too bad, you still got the ticket." I mean, so the real issue, I think, is that people that get these tickets, whether or not they pay them, whether or not they agree with it or not, whether or not they pay them, but what they should agree on is the fact that this is unfair to the driving public. If there are really problems in these areas with children being injured, nobody wants children to get injured.
Right.
But if there's a better way to stop children getting injured in a school zone, then just tax everybody $60,000. I mean, it's a tax in the sense that anybody driving through there that isn't paying attention, like what'd you say, $60,000 in one day?
That's what it was producing.
I mean, it's such an obvious ploy to just get money from people, and it really has nothing to do with children's safety. So I think that's really the avenue that you could pursue, and I don't think asking for a hearing is necessarily going to. If everybody asked for a hearing, sure, the system. It's like if everybody visits a website because it blows up, it's going to go down. But
are you suggesting we destroy that system?
I think it's partially there already.
I would not advocate destroying city property, but I would not bat an eye if somebody did.
All right. Well, let me get into something here, though. You seem very cynical about these hearing officers. Now, when you represent a criminal client and you go into court, when the judge comes in wearing his or her robe and they say, "All rise," do they wear a DA hat? Or does it say, like John Flynn, courtesy of John Flynn on their robes?
No,
well, why not, Paul? Why doesn't it say that?
Because they're supposed to be impartial, and we know how that works, meaning that,
But they can't be directly connected, by the way. I mean, the DA doesn't hire the judges, does he?
No, but they both work for the state of New York, right?
Well, I suppose, but hopefully they come from different. I mean, the concept of any kind of procedural due process, you're getting an impartial hearing officer, okay?
You're supposed to get an impartial hearing officer.
It can't be procedural due process. It's not a hearing. It's a charade otherwise, okay? My council member is looking into who is responsible for hiring the hearing officers. If the hearing officers are the employees of the Parking Violation Bureau, are they independent, people who can, be objective?
question.
Good question. Gentlemen, I'd like to redirect for a moment here. We went through the fact that these things had to be sent out, and I actually, within 14 days, and I actually had that up as a graphic. I'll just put it up again once more that this is taken from the actual statute that you were referencing earlier. This is just a clip from it. And it says, within 14 business days, if such owner is a resident of this state. And so we're pretty clear on that. So I wanted to ask someone who's in the studio with us right now, one of our staff here at Yowowa, one of our leaders, Ohio Barb, we call her because she used to live in Ohio. But Barb is here now came in this morning with a ticket. And I'm going to ask her to tell you when she got the ticket, when it was taken, and when she received the notice. I'm just going to spin a mic around to her.
Do you want to swear her in before she gives her testimony, Peter?
I do. Do you promise to tell?
Have you got a Koran there for her to put her hand on?
Okay, this is Ohio Barb. I got a notice of violation that I got a speeding ticket from a traffic light on October 23rd at 1:13 p.m. on Delaware Avenue, NB at Canisius. And it gives me the camera number and tag number. And here's a picture of my vehicle and my license plate. And it says that I have to pay the fine by December 6th. But by paying the fine, it's an admission of liability and waives my right to a hearing. And it says payment must be received on or before the due date. U.S. postmark date on the envelope shall be payment date. All right? So keep that in mind. And if I don't pay it, then they can give me an additional $25 fine or refusal or suspension of the motor vehicle registration. Well, according to Pete, thank you, and the 14-day rule, this offense, alleged, happened on October 23rd, a Friday. The notice was sent to me with the post office marked November 24th of 2020, and I received it sometime last weekend, all right, in my mailbox. So it's obviously past the 14 days, all right? But if I pay the fine, okay, I can't have a hearing because, A, I've already said I'm guilty. But my question is, was the school even open that day, given the amount of closures for the city of Buffalo schools?
Or at that time. What's the time of the infraction?
1:13 in the afternoon.
Okay, I would have to check with Common Council on the time that they passed their modification of this, but the city of Buffalo changed the law, their implementation of it, and it's transit times only. It's coming to school and leaving school. So, you're going to love this. It depends where that was with respect to the city changing it, and in view of the fact that the Common Council doesn't think it's fair for somebody to get a ticket at 1 o'clock in front of a school, that it should be like 2:30 to 3:30 and 8:30 or 7:30 to 9:30. It would seem to me that the hearing bureau should just be dismissing all those out of hand. They should be sending you another letter saying forget about it. But I don't have to have a calendar to tell you there's more than 14 business days between the time of the infraction and whatever, and that should be a throwout. Why do you have to comply with the law if the city doesn't? That's
Exactly.
my argument.
Exactly.
But-
I had
but-
to check my calendar to even see if I was in Buffalo that day.
But
it was my vehicle, and then I remembered, oh yeah, I was with a friend, and I never saw the signs that said camera.
Well, I think somebody should call up the city and ask them if they're going to throw all those out, because they got to know they're coming out late, okay? Or they're going to require you to take the day off and go down there and have a hearing.
Now, go down there as in Oklahoma
Well,
or
no,
Massachusetts?
allegedly, Buffalo City Hall for an in-person hearing. And by the way, you can schedule these online. And I am appearing for a client who scheduled his hearing for 3:45 a.m. And that's sometime in January.
Let's schedule mine for 4 a.m.
4 a.m. Yeah.
Well, we could do the same day if you want, because I'm going to be there already. And, I intend to be there unless they catch the error. But do we get the tickets thrown out if they're not there? I'll get video of us pounding on the door of City Hall trying to get in. I'm sorry. There's just a lot of problems here.
Hey,
No.
let's, if you don't mind, let's talk about the magical number that they left on the tickets initially, the sex hotline.
Oh, well, that's fun. There's something else before we get into that, because it's phone numbers, et cetera. They do have a number that you can call to ask for a hearing, and that's been accurate, I believe. But I spoke with Councilman Ferraletto today, and he's being deluged in his office with calls from people who are calling that line trying to get a hearing, and they can't get through. They leave a message, no one calls them back, et cetera, and they get in a panic, and there's like a day or two left to pay, and they're probably going to be paying their ticket, and they really shouldn't be doing that. You're probably better off going online. I've been able to schedule hearings for my cars, not for me or my wife, online. I think it's easier to do that, and you can schedule them apparently for, whatever's convenient to you. So if you like 3 a.m. in the morning, do it then. But the system is kind of broke. Now, with respect to that sex hotline, Peter, is there a way we can call that up? Because I think we got the number here.
If you have the number, I can dial it for you.
Let me look it up on my computer real quick. It's the number you're supposed to call at the company, okay, is an 855 number. But the number that they give you on some of the citations and some of the notices of the hearing was actually an 800 number. And I think this will be a great little surprise, an extra little treat, an extra little entertainment here. And then they send you out an apology letter after that, after you've called up. But
Effective, efficient government.
that's important.
Or lack thereof.
That's important, provided in a transparent and accountable manner. I want someone accountable for this.
This is like a Three Stooges show.
Yeah,
It
you
really
got it.
is.
I'm shoveling through right now. Okay, I believe the number that they tell you to call is 800
Okay.
370 4229.
Well, let's try it.
Make sure we get that on the air.
It's connected.
But if you've got a weak heart,
Do you want something very special?
Yeah, I want a
Something you
hearing.
find hot, exciting, and creative? Well, you've come to the right place. Welcome to our exclusive live Anything Goes
excuse me,
Fantasy
can I get a
Live.
hearing?
We do mean anything.
I'm calling to schedule a
Get your
hearing, please.
ultimate fantasy.
Yeah, sure, we'll
No
spread your-
restrictions, no rules.
Gives a new
right
gives a
now.
new meaning to all rise.
Taste the excitement and feel the pleasure.
Excuse me, is
One
this
more
is
time.
this who I call for a hearing, please, ma'am?
Your credit card number at any time during this message.
That's where she
This
takes your
call will be billed at
money for the
$2.99 per
phone.
minute.
Yeah, this is the
and will
money.
greatly appear on your credit
If you
card
don't want
statement.
the hearing, she'll take the money right now.
It'll appear on your credit card statement as traffic fines.
In most cases, we can help you immediately. So please call us 24 hours a day if you have any billing questions.
Oh, you could
So-
schedule
Enter your
24 hours a
Visa,
day.
MasterCard, American.
There, I cut it off for a second because I think we got the point.
I think there've been some problems in the implementation here.
So that number was where?
They were giving you that on some of the early citations, and then if you called for a hearing, but you wanted to change something, it was on the acknowledgement of contest. And I've got a copy of one of those. Wait, we can throw it up and do a graphic now or later. But so that, and then they had to send out an apology letters. Oh, geez, sorry. Hope you didn't. Hope it didn't ruin your day or whatever.
You know what's going to be funny is some people are going to get refunded for their fines. Others are going to get refunded for the services rendered.
Well, I'm 76 years old and I got a bad heart. And, that's a very risky number to be giving me.
Well, somewhere in the Viagra River, there you go. But we're getting a little off topic. But no, I think what we're
Hey,
illustrating
we're talking
here,
about implementation.
I
What's
know.
off topic?
We're talking about like this comedy of errors that's happening in the city of Buffalo. What do you think, Paul?
Well, it's a point, but these errors can always be corrected pretty easily. I mean, we're talking about a revenue model. It's not a safety for children model. And the point is, the only way it's going to get rectified is if enough people in the city say, "Look, this isn't right. This isn't fair. We need to stop it." And frankly, I don't know if going to hearing is going to do you much good. I mean, all they've got to do, so you get a notice of hearing, and it's been mailed as Ohio Deborah's was late. So you go in there and say, look, it was mailed, beyond the 14-day period. So, I shouldn't have to be responsible for this. And the hearing officer says, well, I'll take that into consideration. But here I have a certificate from the city of Buffalo. You don't have a person. You can't cross-examine this person. It shows that that's your car. It shows that the radar installed in this machine said your car was going 26 miles an hour on this date. And that's not mine.
Nope.
I turned mine off.
No, it's a call on the line, but it's not for the show. So go ahead.
They want your card number, Peter.
You actually owe them for just calling.
Yeah, just the time.
Right.
Yeah, a couple seconds of arousal.
All right, everybody fess up. Everyone pitch in.
Go fund
At least
me.
you might, But so the hearing officer, we've talked is whether or not they're interested in justice or following the statute. They're just interested in your $50, your wallet. You're confronted there with a piece of, a certificate that said, yeah, your car was tagged, here. Can you argue with this certificate at all? No, I can't. Well, so your biggest complaint is you got your notice late, right? Yeah. Well, you're here, right? So you got it late, but you're still here. So too bad. Pay the $50. Goodbye.
My response to that is I can't remember. I mean, I'm 76 years old. I can't remember who I am half the time,
Right. And guess what the hearing officer is going to say?
I wear a name tag to remind myself.
And they'll say, okay, that's nice. Too bad.
But
Pay the $50.
If I had timely notice, I might have been able to remember. I might have remembered that Joe Jones was driving the car that day, and I could get Joe to pay the fine.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Are you going to write a calendar every day? I drove my car this day. Abraham drove my car on Tuesday. But
what are you going to do? So what the statute says, if you go in there, because they're ticketing your car. So the statute specifically says if you lent your car to your brother or your friend or whoever, well, you have a right to make them pay the ticket. But that doesn't mean your car gets off. Just because your brother was driving the car doesn't mean the car gets off. It's still got to pay the ticket. And your car is the one that loses its registration if the ticket isn't paid.
See, my response to that is really, City of Buffalo, you can do this because of a statute. Well, you're not complying with the statute, so don't expect me to comply with the statute. Why do I have to stay within the speed limit? Because you guys can't even figure out how to send me, a bum ticket.
All right, we have a caller. That actually was a caller. I had to double check because I thought I recognized the name. And caller, who's on the line and where you from? Whoop. Hang on one second.
Did we scare him off with that suck?
No. There we go. Go ahead, caller. Where are you from?
Hey, this is Hugh up in Lockport, or also from Saturday Nights right there in your seat.
Yeah, Hugh. Good. Glad you called in.
First, I want to say, as far as the technical issues and the growing pains they seem to be going through, yeah, every one of those needs to be challenged because that's the only way things get fixed is to challenge it. But as far as the timelines, I believe the New York state law says from, is it 7 a.m. to, I believe, 6 p.m. in a school zone, the speed is reduced. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. In this particular law was a result of a common council ordinance, and the common council has changed the way it's enforcing. The original law essentially called for these cams to be authorized. Remember, this is an offer from the state. It says, Buffalo City, you can implement a program if you want. And when they originally implemented it, the Common Council unanimously implemented it, saying only ticket in the transit times, the come to school and the go away. Apparently, with 10 minutes left, the mayor vetoed that, and the law went into effect with the whole day thing. But the Common Council recently changed the way they're doing their implementation. So I think the city of Buffalo is free to change its implementation, because the state of New York has said, it's okay for you to implement a program, and I think they can change it. So for a while there, the initial part, it was whatever the state said, but it's different now, so it's changed.
Okay. Can a local municipality override a state law like that?
Well,
Because, like I said, I believe the state law states the timelines. I'm a little better versed on the school zones. I live just a few blocks from the old Charlotte Cross School in Lockport, which is where the first school zone speed was put into place after a little girl was hit crossing, getting out of elementary school. So in Lockport, we're very well versed on the school zones, and the police here, they don't mess around with them.
Well, but you got to understand, if the state limit is still in effect, the police could chase you down or set up a radar there, but that's different. That's entirely different from an automated machine, and that's a different game entirely. And, then you're going to get your points on your license.
Have been challenged. Right. The automated machines have been challenged all the way up to the federal level, though, I believe. Arizona had a case. I know New Orleans had a case. And it wasn't for school. It was for general speed and for for traffic lights. And both of those have been upheld.
Well, I think it could be, but this is dependent on implementation. Like in a speed zone, a school zone, you've got to have proper notice. And quite frankly, proper notice, the only one I've seen in the city of Buffalo, just so you know, is at McKinley High, which is on Elmwood, and it's on Elmwood in both directions. You see that yellow pentagon with the kids crossing the street first. You then see the school zone speed sign. Okay, and with respect to McKinley, that's quite close to McKinley. Okay, as soon as you hit that, you're supposed to be under 15, or 15 or below. But they give you a little bit of time, and then the camera is there, and then there's an end of speed zone, and it's the same way going north and going south.
I was saying, I'm good with
that's fair.
The technical errors here in the implementation. That all needs to be challenged, and if a bunch of tickets get thrown out as a result, then the city will correct what they're doing wrong on those parts. Putting the signs in the wrong place, not having them identified properly, that's all justifiable complaint. My thing is, with the school zones in general, we really do need to reduce speed. The city of Buffalo, just like every other city, is short-staffed on law enforcement right now. So to put an officer at every school in Buffalo, or even in the ones where they have the higher issues, wouldn't that be counterproductive?
Well, is there a problem they're responding to? I mean, are the streets littered with dead children? Because quite frankly, I don't think there was a big issue here. And there are some cams. And by the way, there is a separate section of this law for the city of Buffalo. It's the... Let's see, it's C4. It actually defines school zone, okay? So it may be different from what gets defined in state law, but it's essentially, it seems like it's a quarter-mile radius, but it also appears it's on a street abutting a school. And let me give you an example here that's a little weird. The Westminster School is behind the retail district on Bailey Avenue. Okay, it's not on Bailey Avenue, and yet the speed zone with a speed cam is on Bailey Avenue. And that's the one that's on for 11, or it was on for 11 hours a day. I question whether that's appropriate to call it a speed zone at all, number one, in the first place. And if we're really that concerned about the safety of kids, if they have to cross Bailey there, then why don't we have crossing guards? At that time. And I believe we do there. Now, there's another one. It's by Tillinghast on Colvin by Nichols School. The speed cam is there, but there's no crosswalk marked on the street. So we were so concerned about the safety of the kids from Canisius crossing Colvin Avenue by Tillinghast that we had to put up this speed cam, but we didn't have a bucket of paint. And, basically, I'm willing to volunteer. If Buffalo will give me some rollers and a bucket of paint, I'll go, paint a crosswalk across Colvin Avenue this weekend. It's hard not to be cynical because there doesn't seem to be any reason here other than that they wanted to raise revenues. Obviously, no one wants to be hurting kids around schools. There's a reason why you have lower speeds and you have school zones. That's very clear. And I think everybody understands that and everybody appreciates it. And if the speeding maniacs, then good, get them.
Oh, I agree, but at the same time, the one school zone where Peter had said it was 60,000 in a day or a week. Wouldn't that be a sign that people are flaunting and totally disregarding this law?
No, actually, if you look at that section of Main Street, if you drive it, in general, you're coming out of areas that are higher speed, coming in out of Amherst, or you've come from the area that's the south of Winspear, where it's a forest of red lights, and you finally get through all these signs and all these lights, etc., and finally the road ahead opens up. But the plain truth of the matter is, my guess is a lot of people don't even know there's a school there. I mean, they probably see that there's a church. So let's make sure they know. Oh, also something else. There are flashing lights before Winspear leaving the city. Those lights were not flashing most of the time during the time that the cameras were active. Unfortunately, I never got video of that, but both my wife and I observed them at times when they should have been flashing and they weren't. So
this goes to the implementation that they are messing up drastically, and just wholly they are destroying the implementation process of it. But my question is, are you more concerned with the implementation or with the actual ticketing?
Well, first off, the ticketing is because the bad ticketing. Let's put it that way. The unfair ticketing is because of bad implementation.
Correct.
And again, I want us to encourage people voluntarily to be more careful around schools, and as the Buffalo Common Council now says, particularly during times when kids are likely to be coming and going. But I want people to do that voluntarily because I don't care how many of these cams you have around. If people want to speed, people want to act crazy around schools and kids, they will. I think this kind of law basically gets people angry and they say, let's tear down all government. And as an example, on Abbott Road in South Buffalo, there's a school zone that's 0.8 of a mile long. It's almost a mile long. I mean, it's the longest one I've ever seen. I did 2 videos that are up on my YouTube page, and Peter Green, we probably need to make those available somehow or other.
We'll post them here.
As part of Western New York Reach, because I spent a lot of time driving around saying I don't know what's going on here, but I have been told by people who live in South Buffalo that they stay off Abbott Road now and they drive like hell on the side streets. It didn't solve a problem, did it?
Paul, you got something to add?
Well, that's the question. I think the callers bring up a good point that, these school zone cameras were implemented for a reason. I mean, the statute says, I'll specifically read it here, but the criteria the city should use, but not. They can use other criteria, is the speed data, crash history, roadway geometry. So if there are problem places that need this kind of monitoring in a real way, then that's understandable. But it appears that they have no reason or haven't done the work to say, okay, these are problem areas. I believe what really gets stuck in people's craws, this monitoring of them. I mean, they could start doing these cameras I think the reason they started this program is they saw how much money they were raking in from the 198 when they put it down to 30 miles an hour. And I think I don't know if they're using cameras there, but they're certainly giving a lot of tickets out. But they use these companies that provide, I believe they provide the equipment to monitor people, they could start giving them tickets for jaywalking and give them tickets for everything and anything within the reach of their cameras. So I mean, all it is becoming is another layer of taxation, just to try to exploit people in a way that they can't defend themselves. If it's a real problem with school zones, you know, like Pete said and everybody else has said, anytime I've gone by a school zone in the morning, there's always a couple crossing guards there, and usually it's a big flashing light, say, and normally it's on a place that's 40 miles an hour, tells you go down to 25. But the lights are flashing when school's in progress. And kids are already protected. Most of them are taking buses. Kids aren't running around during the day like, you know, the ball's going to be falling in the street or something like that. This seems like an overreach to address the problem they're trying to fix. And it tells me that the problem they're trying to fix is the fact that they don't have enough money, and this is just a way to get more money. It really has nothing to do with protecting kids in the school zone.
Yeah,
By the way,
would agree with that. Go ahead, AJ.
I was going to say, by the way, most of the schools are shut down. Like, most of the kids are taking their classes online in the city of Buffalo. So, I mean, having that camera on all day when there's not even kids attending those schools at that time, does it really make any sense? So, when they first put these cameras up, they were thinking that they'd get $1.2 million for the entire year. They got $1.2 million the first week
Correct.
they were on. So it kind of seems like it's a money grab. Of course, nobody wants to see kids lying in the streets. Do we see that anyways? Do we see dead children all over the place?
And that's actually a rather disturbing graphic when you think about it, because really you've got this issue happening right now with the city of Buffalo wanting to fill a gap in their budget. Before we move on, we've got about 10 minutes left, and Hugh, we've got you still there. Was there anything else, Hugh, or can we? Thank you so much for your call.
Hey, not a problem. No, that was it for today, and I'll talk with you later, Pete.
Thanks
All
for
right.
calling in, Hugh. Good talking to you.
Thanks,
Hey,
Hugh.
no problem. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
So one thing I wanted to mention was I come from Canada. I've been living here for a number of years. Yep. But in Canada, back in the 1990s, they introduced photo radar, they called it, in Ontario. The province of Ontario introduced it province-wide. And what they did was a test period where for several months, if a photo radar caught you, you got what looked like a ticket, but it was just a warning that you had been seen driving, etc. And it helped acclimatize the people to the process itself. What we're getting now, it seems, is that in Buffalo, I mean, Barb expressed the same thing. You can receive, and you, Pete, I believe you got a few of these where they suddenly start coming in, like you travel somewhere on a regular basis, and you don't know this until you start getting the notifications.
My car got them, Peter. I didn't get them.
Your car is
I don't drive. I ride a bike whenever I can.
That's true. Well,
you own the car, so that's what all it
yep.
takes. Yep.
Oh, Paul, good point.
What, you got some against capitalism? Come on.
I want to bring up something else that was contained in that document, and it says that essentially the camera on the infraction, the notice of liability, you have to have the identification number. It's on the screen. I've underlined identification number of the camera which recorded the violation or other document locator number. And what's interesting is that when we looked at Barb's camera, or not Barb's, we looked at some of yours, Pete, they didn't have the identifier number for the camera, did they?
Yep. No, and the reason for that, I mean, there's a good reason for it. It isn't just, nitpick, but it's statutory compliance. They have to prove that they calibrated the camera that day.
Right.
Okay, and they have to have the records there. That's part of why this is self-proving. Well, yeah, my camera's null, so it's the null camera. It means, I guess they didn't have one. How do you get a picture if your camera's null? I don't know.
And Paul, have you received any?
No, I have not. Not received
okay.
any.
He's hiding in on the farm in Wilson, just so you know.
That's awesome.
There's a couple other points, Peter, that I didn't hit on, but one of them was, is 15 miles an hour too slow? Rod Watson in the Buffalo News posted that the other day. He said his car won't go that slow. And just so you know, for the heck of it, I tested my car. My car will go 2 miles an hour. Now, I think if I drive it at 2 miles an hour down the street, I'll probably end up, with a ticket for impeding, and the rear end will be crashed in. So, yeah, you really can do 15 miles an hour, but most people are out doing 30, 35 in a 30 zone. If you jam on your brakes to 15, and, this is kind of a third rail because, if I say, I want every school zone to be a 60 mile an hour speed limit, they say, you didn't care about kids, So I'm careful about that, but there's a lot of people who think 15 miles an hour is too slow, including Rod Watson. Any opinions on that, guys?
What do you think, Paul?
Oh, I definitely think it's too slow. I mean, especially like I said, that, it'd be one thing, when I was a kid, kids, went home for lunch all the time. I don't really think they go out that much. And when they do, they're heavily monitored. So, I don't think this is a solution for a problem that exists only in the revenue area where the city wants to bring in money. It's not a problem that exists as a result because kids are being hurt or injured as a result of people flouting the laws with respect to driving, being careful in a school zone.
Right.
Well, let me try a variant on this, okay? Let's say that you're worried about people are driving too fast in Buffalo. And by the way, I live on Starren Avenue near Amherst. People come off the hill at Amherst. It's a 30-mile-an-hour zone. The people routinely, particularly during rush hour, do 50 miles an hour in front of my house, okay? I'm 1 block in. And people who live in my neighborhood, if they have kids, they instruct the kids never to cross Starren Avenue, ever, under any circumstances, period. I have seen all manner of animal run down and scraped up animals off the street in front of my house. Fortunately, I've never seen a person get hit. It would be real nice to have some enforcement. I'd pay for a radar cam that would, I'd love one of these that would give people a ticket for doing 40 in front of my house. I'd pay for the city to do that, and they could keep all the revenues, okay? So let me posit a hypothetical. We'll pretend we're in law school like Abraham is. Let's say we reduce the speed limit in the city of Buffalo to 25. And we're not going to ticket anybody until they do 36 for the entire city. And we'll put these cameras up wherever we want and run them 7 by 24. Now, that gets rid of the notice issue, doesn't it? Because if you come across city line, you're going to know if you do 36, you're going to get a ticket. Would that be fairer? Would that make more sense? Would that solve a better problem?
Not with this implementation, no. Probably not.
But it would shut Pete up because I'm all into notice and fairness. I mean, there'd be fairness and notice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but the city of Buffalo is doing that. Then the city of Lackawanna would be doing it. Then the town of Amherst. Then you have these cams everywhere.
Lackawanna would get it wrong, Abraham. I'm sorry.
Well,
That's your hometown.
What if they could get it right? So do we want to live in a world where everybody's monitored 24 hours a day and given a ticket for not complying with the powers that be? I mean, I think that's the real, the Orwellian aspect of it is the,
yes.
that really scares me.
If you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't worry about it. Don't you understand that? Is it okay if I search your car for drugs?
Sure.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't take them with you when you're done.
Well, it
If
sounds
you're willing
like
to
was willing to share. Come
If you're
on,
willing
man.
to
You
share,
gotta be
okay.
nasty about it.
it sounds
Jesus.
like we've kind of run full circle here with the idea of what we see wrong with the system, which is it was very clear from the video, and I have to agree with Pete that we should post these. We do have a Facebook page. This is all sprung up for the WNY Reach in the last few days that we're now up and running. We're going to post this on Facebook. I'm also going to post a number of videos that Pete and I took. They're very raw, and I'll put a disclaimer with them. Raw in the sense that they're not edited or fancy, and you might hear some wind noise. But
They're not sexually erotic, are they, or anything like that? You're not talking about that kind of raw. Okay.
No, we don't call that line. But we are going to do that because we want people to see what we saw when we went out and, like the one you said was down by Mercy Hospital. we can't find the school, but we can find the signs everywhere. It's really quite interesting. So as we do that, we will be setting up a WNY Reach YouTube page and having things transferred onto that as well. So we'll create mechanisms. But your feedback is important, as well as your commitment to helping others learn about this. I think people are just learning about it, a lot of them, when they're being surprised by tickets. You know, they're getting them in the mail, and I don't remember that, and I don't think I was speeding or whatever. I liked your idea about 25 miles through the whole city. As to whether or not people would abide by that or want to see that happen, I think we forget sometimes we drive to get somewhere. So obviously, we need to get there in a timely manner. We're going to work, etc. And sometimes there's stresses that they got to get somewhere in a hurry, and they do exceed the law, and they're aware of that. But nobody wants to speed through school zones. And Paul, you said it best yourself when you said that when I used to go to school, and probably when you went to school, we had recess in the morning, and we had lunch, and we were out in the schoolyard all the time. And when someone drove past a school, you knew it because the kids were out there. You were well aware. And not all the time because they were in class. But now it's like they never venture out of the building except to get on a school bus.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a different world. And again, we have to look at what's best. But what do we want, gentlemen? I'd like each of you to offer. What should Buffalo do right now to address this?
My solution, of course, is just have the computer in your car, report to the mothership all the time. So if you ever speed, it gives you a ticket automatic. So you'll be getting like tickets left and right. It'll tell your insurance company what a good driver you are. It'll you don't have to do anything. We'll just be monitored 24 hours a day, and anybody that does anything wrong will be ticketed or fined or told that they're a bad person.
And we'll be translating this into newspeak.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll just let Big Brother run our lives, and we don't have to do anything.
Paul, just so you know,
that's the solution, man.
Your car, if you have a car built in the last 10 years, it's already got the electronics in place to do that.
I know it
just
does.
so you know, it's already there, so it wouldn't be any problem. And is that the kind of society we want to live in? That's the question you're asking.
That is the question.
There's actually a book, I think Pete was telling me about it. It's called 3 Felonies a Day. There's so many laws on the books that we don't even know about that the average person commits about 3 crimes a day.
Without knowing it.
Without even knowing that they're doing it. There's so many things that are outlawed that people don't even know. Does anyone know that if you have a fish, a lobster below a certain length or above a certain length, if you catch one, it's like a federal misdemeanor?
Where do you catch lobsters in Lackawanna?
I mean, just in general. Not unless
I wouldn't eat them. By the way, they're undoubtedly radioactive and toxic.
Say you go fishing somewhere.
Okay.
I don't know.
Lake Erie.
But did anyone know that? Like, does the average
of course
fisherman
not.
know that? No.
Of course you would. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's like one of the editors for The Beast, Ian Murphy, who passed away over a year ago, used to like to go to Christian events and quiz them on the Bible, if they were wearing, any of the little minor things that you could do in the Bible that would get you stoned or thrown into hell or whatever. And he would always catch people if they're wearing, mixed blend clothing. There's all kinds of stupid things in there. I mean,
you can't play football. You can't touch the skin of a pig.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
That's why they wear the gloves.
So, and then now just look at what, and that's just one book. Now we got all these laws all over the place. I mean, you're probably committing, there's probably some crime. We probably committed, like in the last hour, we probably committed a few crimes or something.
What do you mean,
white man?
We need to have a show on about what is criminal and actus reus and mens rea and all the other stuff. And Abraham, since you're in your second year in law school, you got to do a show on that because that's something. There are non-guilty minds. Non-scienter crimes means you didn't know you were committing a crime and you're guilty anyhow. Those drive me crazy. I just don't understand it.
All right. Well, going back to the crimes we may or may not know we're committing, were you satisfied with that as your final thought there, Paul? What the city of Buffalo should do?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go over to you, Abraham. What do you right now? If you know you're going to be driving through Buffalo, what do you want Buffalo Common Council to do to address this?
Just take the damn things down. How about that? Or okay, I would just do what the law says. Implement what the law says. Flashing lights. I don't think that we need these cameras on from 7 in the morning till 6 at night, especially at a time where kids aren't even attending the schools. Does that make any sense to anybody? No. Like he was saying, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It makes a lot of dollars, though, for the city.
Good point.
And, I mean, I don't know. I would just take them down, to be honest. But
discontinue the program?
Yeah, I'm not the king or the emperor. That's Andrew Cuomo. So...
Oh, that's its show unto itself. Before I cut back to you, Pete, I thought I'd add my own. I've been kind of listening here and enjoying the facilitation. Thank you to Hugh for calling in. My idea would be for Common Council to admit this needs to be rethought. Rescind any tickets and, refund them for the period and call it a grace period, call it a trial period. But find out if the damn things work. Because when I'm standing on Main Street and I look at a traffic camera that is fully a block, a driver is seeing the camera a block after they pass the school, that's not a mistake. That's stupid. And I don't know who was that stupid to put those cameras there, but somebody wasn't thinking. Honestly, wasn't even aware. Like, there's where they told us to put it. Hey, boss, the school's back there. I really think Buffalo Common Council should rescind the tickets, refund, and wipe the slate clean. Reintroduce the program with the modifications that will help it, like timing, etc. Make sure that all of the signs. I wonder how many Common Council members went out and looked at the cameras. How many of them would stand there on Main like we did, look up at the trees that block the signs? They're put right behind a tree, and they had to be put up in summer. So I guess it was a project for someone who was blind, because they put the signs up right behind a tree. So you're driving along and what's behind that tree, My idea is, as I said, rescind the tickets, refund what has already been paid in fines, admit the fact that it was a great idea they didn't execute well, and try again. Pete, what do you think?
I certainly agree with you on the rescission. There's a bit of a problem with that, though, since Mr. Fallon seems to think that, money grows on trees in Buffalo.
It does in Wilson.
I think the city of Buffalo owes the company that's running this thing $14 of every 50 that they collect. So if you rescind, several tens of thousands of tickets, does the city still owe that money to this company? Is it already gone? So, but the only fair thing to do is say, let's do a start over and let's go back and review these. Now, what concerns me the most, and by the way, the Buffalo Common Council loves my videos. They said, keep them coming. We think this is great. And we're going to get them anything that we have here. It seems that the Common Council, being the body closest to the people, is willing to listen. And when you get to the administration, they're basically saying, so go have a hearing. They got to know that they're violating the law on the notices. And what we see with the early citations, they were incomplete and therefore defective, but they came out timely. The later ones are now fully completed and they're coming out too late. This system isn't working, so let's make it work. And if you want me to comply with the law, you better be willing to comply with the law. This is a two-way street here. The other things, if we were talking about my car parking illegally on Franklin Street or something, that's very different than me speeding. And just because it's only $50, I don't have to hire a lawyer, number one. And if you really upset me, I'll spend $100,000 in legal time killing you on this. It's it's troublemakers like me that cause a lot of grief with respect to implementation. So I think we need a do-over, and I want to see more input and more involvement by the Common Council in this. And for instance, Rashid Wyatt, the University District Councilman, agrees with me that the zone on Bailey Avenue never should have been a school zone. And by the way, interestingly enough, the only reason that didn't really light it up and ring the bell like Main Street did is because the street's got parking all over the place. It's narrow, there's more lights. I don't think you could drive that fast anyhow. So, people are going through doing 25 miles. Demonstrating that we can do it right rather than demonstrating that we don't know how to do it.
Please, Pete. I mean, it's kind of like your argument is a little bit like Mussolini, the trains can run on time argument. It's like, well, that's good as long as you've done everything right. Then fine us up the yin yang all you want. As long as you get it right, then it's fine. It's wrong from the get-go that they shouldn't be allowing these private companies to monitor us to make money, period.
Hey, that thing under your right foot, that some call it an accelerator, others call it a hammer, that controls how fast your car is going. Don't put it down as hard as you do, Paul.
Well, gentlemen,
who's gonna pay all the Erie County patronage employees if we don't have these speed
You're
cams?
right.
Oh, there are no
right.
patronage employees. Stop it.
Oh, I don't know. Well, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming in today. We're going to start posting a lot of these videos in the next few hours on the WNY Reach on Facebook. I want to thank Paul Fallon, attorney from Buffalo area, and great analogy there, Paul, when you called in Orwell, because man, I just keep thinking we got to learn Newspeak. Pete Reese, the author of the what was it, the Ramblin' Reese or the Roving Reese?
The Roving Reese Report,
Roving
I think
Reese
that's what we're
Report.
going to call it. It's the little gimbal cam that tells all, gets people indicted, exposes, government, exposes whatever. We just don't want to, we don't expose ourselves. That's one thing we don't do.
That's right, so we stay off that line. AJ, Abraham Nasser, great to have you here. First time on air with us, but you're a good friend of the studio. Law student, and he works as a paralegal with Pete quite a bit, and connoisseur of coffee. Great to have you here today, AJ.
Thank you for having me, and thanks to Hugh. We had the caller. We had a great little chat with him. So
Well, Hugh hosts a show here on Saturday nights called Community Accountability at 7 o'clock. And the idea with that show is he's helping to make streets safer in communities by just practical things like leaving lights on, etc. So with that in mind...
I'm going to call in and attack him personally this Saturday.
I think you should.
Tomorrow.
He'd enjoy it, actually. He can spar with the best of them. But no, it's great hearing Hugh call in. I want to thank Ohio Barb, our audio person today, and victim of one of these misguided tickets. Yeah.
The bad tickets. Bad paper, Barb. You're going to get off.
I saw her a couple of days ago, and I said, how was your day? And she goes, rotten now. But, yeah, that's what a lot of people are experiencing, is they're getting blindsided by something that really shouldn't happen. It should happen, as Paul said, do it within what the law says and what you plan to do in the beginning and how you presented it to your people.
If I can add just one last thing.
Yes, sir.
I think it's almost cruel in the middle of a pandemic to be doing this to people. People don't have jobs. People are on unemployment.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, you get a ticket. You didn't even know that you were driving.
Right.
You didn't even know there was a camera there. The school is closed. There's not even kids to protect there. Isn't that the whole point of having these cameras there? And people are getting ticketed $50, $100, and it's like in the middle of a pandemic when nobody has money and we're doing this to people.
But that's why, because they're looking to fill holes in their budget. And they're doing it, it's easy
Take
to
a pay cut.
justify, oh, well, you got fined because you were driving in a school zone and you could kill children, that kind of thing. But, yeah, do it by the law. So come back with us on the Niagara Reach from time to time. Niagara Reach, WNY Reach, pardon me. And from time to time, we're going to do these bulletin reports to talk about issues. We got a lot of them coming up. But thank you for joining us today. Share this with friends in Buffalo. And I just want to thank everyone who was in the studio and you for listening. Have a great weekend.